You need to be focused on the environmental impacts of what you're doing to the world around you and what do you do differently. We talk about the value of infrastructure that we're building, but we use 75 to 80% less water than the average processing facility in Colombia.
Welcome to the Going Long podcast. We're back once again to continue to help to educate you so that you feel much more comfortable as well as confident investing beyond your backyard. And yes, once again, I'm your host, Billy Keels. And wow, you are in for an amazing conversation today because our two guests from today, wow, they have such a amazing experience globally, different disciplines, everything from the financial aspects of business opportunities and life opportunities, also from a legal perspective, SEC, which is amazing, and also just people that are really focused on quality of life. So we're going to get into that in a little bit. But just one thing that I did want to mention to you is that we're continuing to move up the charts in the podcast space. We're in the top 1.5% of podcasts listened to globally, which is fantastic. And really largely thanks to your continued commitment to be here, to not only listen to what you're learning, but also to place that in action. And also the fact that you're leaving your honest written reviews as well as ratings. So if you've not had a chance to do that yet, please take a second just to leave an honest written review as well as a rating. It's something I take very seriously so that we can continue to bring you the best possible content and the amazing guests like guys you're going to meet today. Also, a number of you are constantly asking, how can I see the episodes from the very beginning? Go to billykeels.com. When you're at billykeels.com, the only thing you need to do is then check out the podcast tab and you can check out every single episode from the very beginning. So go to billykeels.com. Once you're there, check out the podcast tab and you can find every single episode. There's also within the website, you can find a lot of different resources that will be useful to you. And for those of you that are interested in, you are an accredited investor and you are interested in meeting and being able to get to know more social accredited investors, then just go and write an email to aiclub@billykeels.com. That's aiclub@billykeels.com. We'll get in touch. Then we'll get a chance to know one another and have you onboarded. We're in the just getting started. So it's a great time to actually send that email to aiclub@billykeels.com. So with that, today's conversation, amazing. Like these two guys, you are really, really, really going to enjoy. We're going to talk about something that we've not talked about here before, which is really commodities, specifically in the coffee space. These two guys, Cole and Adam, they're just absolutely amazing. I mean, they've lived in different countries from Asia to Latin America, worked in Europe, and just have a very global perspective and are very much focused on high social and environmental impactful businesses, right? That they are making a positive impact. Today, they call Colombia home or Colombia, depending on who you are, where you are. And I know you're going to love today's conversation. I got so much out of it. And you're also going to get insight to a very unique long distance investing opportunity, direct investment opportunity into coffee. So just after this, you're going to get a chance to listen to the conversation with Cole Shephard and Adam Jason just after this. Whether you're an active investor or a passive investor, you really like your day job and you want to continue to go into your day job every single day feeling better, knowing that you've created the right options for yourself. At the same time, you just don't have enough time to really get your head around, spend all the hours investing long distance. Well, one way or the other, over the last number of years that I have been investing long distance, I've really understood a number of the major mistakes that you should avoid if you want to get to creating the right options for yourself much faster and being able to create more income sooner. And if you want to do that, if you want to understand more about that, I've made it really, really simple. You can just go to billykeels.com/7 mistakes to avoid. You can learn all the things that the 7 major mistakes that I've seen over and over again that I want you to avoid. Once again, you can go to billykeels.com/7 mistakes to avoid. So you know what? If you're interested in investing in assets that have both high social as well as environmental impact in both the USA and Latin America, then guess what? Today's a conversation that I promise you, you're really going to want to listen to until the very last word, I promise. Because you know what? Today's guests, yes, I did say guests. Well, you know what? They have both a law background on one hand and then from a Big Four accounting firm on the other. They have worked different types of roles, everything from a judicial intern to CFO of a company. You know what? They've also, listen to this geography. This is really you're gonna love this. So from it, just in the United States, places like Texas, Texas, New York, North Carolina, and then also places like Bermuda, Beijing, Hong Kong, Puerto Rico, and Colombia, which is absolutely fantastic. So we're going to find out a lot more about that from the partners of Legacy Group. Really, really, really want to welcome these two guys to the program today, Adam Jason, as well as Cole Shephard. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks, Bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Billy. Great to be here.
Hey, man, this is going to be super awesome. I love you guys' story. I love what you've been doing in your life to get to this point in your journey. And I'm sure that so many people that are here as a part of the Going Long family are really, really going to be able to take away lots of actionable insights, as well as really understand about a new place that we've not talked about before. So listen, guys, you both know I love to be able to ask everybody at least the same 5 questions. You're going to get 2 in the beginning. You're going to get 3 at the end. And then, you know what, in the middle, sorry, guys, I have absolutely no idea what I'm going to ask you, but I know that it's going to be really, really value add for the Going Long family. But so here's the thing. Most of the time, I'm going to put a little different spin on this question, but help me understand and help the Going Long family understand, where do you guys actually live?
I'll start us off. So both of us live in Medellin, Colombia. Actually, I came down about 7 years ago, and Adam's in for 4 years now.
All right. Fantastic, Cole. Appreciate you sharing that. And then I'm going to ask both of the two of you to share with us, what's the most positive thing that's happened to you in the last 24 hours?
We'll get into the business stuff, I think, a little bit later, but extending your question over a little bit of a broader time period, we just finished for our coffee company down here in Colombia, the Series B funding round. So we've raised $10 million this year to grow and expand that business. We technically finished it on Tuesday. So I've extended your 24-hour question to hit what's been a pretty exciting development for us over the last couple of days.
Fantastic. Appreciate that. Cole, what about you, man?
And then one more, I would say, we're working on some solar energy projects that we're trying to bolt in. As we'll talk about, we're heavily into the impact space down here in Colombia. And last night we went out with a couple of partners we brought in from Kenya, some good friends of mine that I've known for the past 6 years. We're looking at these projects together, and they took us to the best pizza place that I've ever been in Medellin, Colombia. And it's in
Colombia in general.
In Colombia in general. Like, it doesn't exist. It's like this guy used to live in Italy for 3 years. Incredible. So I would say that from a lifestyle perspective is incredible.
And it's walking distance to your house. So you have to.
Well, Adam, don't say that part about it. Don't say that part about it. It's like they had to travel 50 hours. No, I'm kidding. No, that's the guys. Listen, that's fantastic. And that's the whole thing. Like, so many positive things can happen. Of course, lots of things that happen positively in business, and that's every single day. And there's lots of challenges as well. But, you know, when you get a chance to spend quality time with friends that have become business partners that you've known over a long period of time, and you can share some really nice Italian food, like, that's phenomenal. So I appreciate you guys sharing that with us. And one of the other things is, like, I give myself, and the entire Going Long family, they know this already, guys, but I give myself this really impossible task of trying to share not just one, but today 2 backstories, high-level highlights in like 7.5 seconds. Never going to work. Never, ever going to work. So do us a favor, me and the Going Long family. If you guys can share your backstories, share it in the way that you want. You can combine them however you want to do it. But I guess the important part here is also share with us here, the Going Long family, what are some of the major decisions that you've made up to this point in your journey? And then from there, we'll kind of see where the conversation goes.
Sure. I'll start us off. I love this question. So to me, my goal since I was getting out of university, let's say out of graduate school, was to become international. You know, I left the US when I was 25 years old. I was working with PricewaterhouseCoopers, and my goal was to learn. So for guys who are looking at investing overseas or investing onshore or investing anywhere, most of it's about learning and understanding how things work. You're going to find that, the investment banker sitting next to you potentially might not be any smarter than you are. They just have more knowledge of a unique aspect of the world. So for me, my journey was always about getting to the next level from an academic and real world knowledge point of view. So it took me from the United States to Bermuda to Hong Kong to doing deals throughout Asia, deals throughout Europe, throughout North America, and eventually coming to start my own businesses down here in Colombia. And then, investing in knowledge becomes, put your money where your mouth is and make concentrated efforts and bets. You need to take risk. And if you want to build real wealth and do special things in the world, it takes risk and it takes hard work and it takes the propensity for knowledge and going way outside of their comfort zone. And I think it's more important now, more than ever, to get outside of your comfort zone.
Oh yeah. Love that. Adam, let's build on that, man.
I would say for me, kind of a driving motivation has always just been competition, pushing myself in terms of what I'm doing, whether it's in sports. I grew up as a football player, played some college football, now into the business world and continuing to grow as a person and do all those kind of things. I practiced law in the US for 8 years before coming down to Colombia, worked for Fortune 500 companies, raised a ton of money on Wall Street, taking companies public, doing all that. Decided that competitive drive within me mandated a little bit of a push towards an entrepreneurial route as well. Found Colombia, found the things that Cole was doing, found the opportunity here. And I think learned over the course of time too, how I guess reversible decisions we make in life might be when people are always scared about, I guess, permanency of it. And I think for Cole or myself, if we needed to go back to the US and work, there'd be lots of opportunities there for us, but it's worth, I think, in life, taking that step outside your comfort zone and trying to push yourself a little bit and see what comes of it. And I can say from my own experience, it's really only been good things.
Yeah. So, and I'm sure that because that's what's at the top of your mind. I appreciate you sharing that, Adam, right? Are the good things at the same time. And I'm someone just very similar to what Cole's talking about. I mean, I've been now living outside of the United States for some 21 odd years. Right. And so you remember the great things, but there are also a lot of times that you can go through that are really challenging or kind of go against the grain of what you were taught maybe as a little kid. Just a comment from my side. But one of the things I'd love for you guys to tell, how did you guys actually meet?
Cole tells the story best. So
I like the story. We were creating the coffee company at the time. The green coffee company is our primary project we have for our current investors. How Adam and I really run is we usually, bet our own money on a project, seed it, and then build it out. And this was one project that was really how we met. Is, at the time I was writing the legal documents for a new private equity structure that we were creating. It was called the Green Coffee Company. Next year we're going to be the largest coffee producer in Colombia. This was 4 years ago that we started this company. And Adam came in at the time because, Adam's a great lawyer. He's an SEC attorney and I'm a dorky accountant, by trade. I was the one writing the legal docs and he came into the sphere. I got on a call with Adam and, Adam's principally from Buffalo, New York. And, a lot of my family's from upstate New York. So I remember getting on a call with Adam and he had slightly a Buffalo accent and it was like talking to my cousin. Immediately we got along. He was able to see commercial aspects of what I was trying to do that, doing M&A, for a lot of my life. I was used to working with high-end lawyers, all the guys out of Yale, Harvard, best universities in the world, but a lot of them weren't commercial. And they weren't able to see the economic impact of what we're doing, what the actual goal of a transaction or business was, and Adam was. So that's when we started working together, and ever since it's been full steam ahead.
Yeah, it's like this dynamic duo, like I was talking about in the beginning. And a lot of times when you have this point of reference, it helps to accelerate relationships or, being able to talk about certain things because you have, other things in common. Which I think is fantastic. So I appreciate you guys sharing that. And we're going to talk about the company, the what you're doing around coffee, right? But one of the other things that, and I'd love you guys' perspective on this because one of the things I never even understood anything about alternative assets. The only thing I actually knew growing up was if I saved money, that was considered investing because of the way that I grew up. Right. And so afterwards, then I started getting into real estate and I would read these books and a lot of the books were like, hey, listen, this is an alternative investment. You can earn $200-$300 a month. And, I'm working this, really high paid professional role. And I'm tired of the stock market going up and down and me having zero control. But one of the things that the books talked about was, as you are investing is that you should kind of buy in a place where you actually live for real estate initially, right? And I thought, well, hang on a second. So I looked at my own market here in Barcelona, and I was interested in cash flow, and none of the opportunities provided any cash flow. And I was like, God, but I wasn't sophisticated enough at the time. I didn't understand that I was in an appreciation-based market. So to make a short story long, or maybe longer, I ended up, deciding to invest back in the United States, tens of thousands of kilometers away. But what I've since realized is that this is really a mindset thing. So one of the things we help with people today and here with the Going Long podcast, and you guys have an amazing story to share, is like, what happens, or what was it within you all that made you think, well, you know what, I can actually not just invest myself in a place where I live or maybe don't live, it's thousands of kilometers away or miles away, but also to be able to help others to recognize that, hey, listen, you don't actually need to just be in your backyard to make an investment in something that is, well, going to provide you whatever benefit that it is that you're looking for. Maybe if you guys could talk to us a little bit about helping people to understand why investing long distance is something that is absolutely feasible.
Sure. I'll start us off because it's a lot by my thesis of why I came down to Colombia. Right before I came to Colombia, I was living in Hong Kong. And so Hong Kong is a great example of a non-cash flow market. At the time, cap rates in Hong Kong are about 1% Billy. So, you're saying I'm going to buy a house for 100 and I'm going to get $1 a year gross. That's not net. That's gross revenue. And so you have this massive buildup of capital appreciation, largely money coming from, let's say, emerging markets surrounding Hong Kong, largely mainland China. And I saw just kind of what I would call stupid money going into this and saying, that doesn't make any sense. Even though this was 7 years ago, central bank rates weren't at what they are now, which is pretty much zero or negative almost globally in major currencies. I saw they say there's got to be something better. And what you see is that when guys are running their own private businesses, in whatever private business, they make profit. And if you have a cost of capital that is ultimately zero, if you're in a capitalistic system that can make money, it makes sense. So when I came down to Colombia, I was actually looking at moving with my old firm and trying to run M&A teams because there was a lack of human talent to do that. We only had offices in New York, London, and Hong Kong. And when I came down to Colombia, I saw, hey, there's opportunity here, right? I saw the real estate markets, I saw the financial markets, and they didn't make sense to me. So when I started basically saying, hey, let's put my money where my mouth is, start making some educated gambles of my own, I say, this is where you can find yield. This is where you find arbitrage. And personally, from a lifestyle perspective, I also, Adam and I all commonly refer to it as life arbitrage. The life in Medellin, I think is better than living in Miami, for instance, and it's 1/3 the cost. So part of what we do is not only show investments are important, building portfolios is important, but also your life is important. Money isn't everything. And we try to show people what it's like living abroad. It's not as scary as everyone makes it out to be. If you see Latin America in the news, it's not everything you see on CNN, right? There are real people here doing really special things. And it's a special place in the world to be, especially right now in Medellin. I would call it an epicenter of this part of the world. So kind of what we've seen is, investors, especially in America, they're looking for something outside of the regular life, both from an investment and from a life point of view. And we try to bridge that gap. A lot of our investors might call, for instance, Adam up and ask them where their favorite place to go in Medellin is, or get some, viewpoints on Mexico City, which is another place that me and Adam like to go to from time to time. But what we try to show to these guys is, you don't have to buy real estate investment trusts that yield 3% gross, right? We try to bring unique opportunities and say, these are things that we will throw 100% of our own money into, which we do. We put all of our money into all of our own deals. So we're fully in on every deal we do, and say, we personally rep this and run these companies. And if anything was to go wrong, we'll be way more hurt than you guys. And we try to bring something special that they can't get from anyone else. You can't go to Goldman and get our products because that investment product doesn't exist.
There's opportunity to, as well, in these, call it emerging markets, with respect to new industries that U.S. participants or participants in developed markets might not be able to touch, like what we're doing in coffee. If you wanted direct access to that space, but you also wanted a, call it professionally run or kind of world-class management team behind it, it's going to be hard to come by those opportunities. You want to do farmland investing in the US, you're competing with Bill Gates for territory, you're participating in large funds, minimum investment size might be $5 million. We've brought $20 million to Colombia and fundamentally changed an industry and how coffee is done here. So opening those opportunities to investors, adding a lifestyle element to it. Our investors love coming down. We take them out to the farms in the helicopters. They get the coffee. They walk the mountains. They see Colombia. There's an aspect that's financial, but there's also an aspect of lifestyle that Cole mentioned. And we're happy to create those products for ourselves, create those products for our investors, and be able to share that on a collective basis.
Well, and being able to share that on a collective basis is one of the things that's absolutely cool, right? And going back to the original question, and you guys have really laid out a great explanation is, it's not just because it's not in your backyard that you can't do it, because there is the opportunity to learn, right? Going back to what Cole was talking about from the very beginning, and those of us that are very curious want to learn. This is an opportunity to do that. After learning, then you're able to have something else that's really key that you just talked about, which is direct investment, not through some secondary market, but direct investment in companies. And then one of the things that you didn't necessarily say, but I just want to highlight it, because there's also, when you are in certain types of markets, whether they're emerging or not, but you're able to identify inefficiencies, that can be a very good thing for those people that absolutely know what they're doing, because inefficiencies create opportunities. And so maybe you want to talk a little bit about that, or I don't know if you wanted to build on that at all.
I definitely do. I think just show, this is, again, it's why
I could see it in his eyes. I could see it in his eyes.
Yeah. I mean, this is the stuff that riles me up. I get so excited about it, because just going somewhere for a first time, like for me, I love traveling. I'm sure it's very similar to you, Billy, but I love going somewhere new, and you see something with the fresh eyes. And I'll never say I'm smarter than somebody else. All I'll do is I'll see it from my point of view and say, hey, maybe we could do it a different way, or maybe it could run like this. It doesn't have to, just because it's status quo, doesn't mean it needs to stay like that. I mean, whether we do it with coffee, or the reason why it's a little loud is we're doing some stuff with emerging technology behind me. I mean, they're building new metaverses as we speak, right behind me. And what we like to be a part of is stuff that's changing the way industries are done for the better. Right? We do things the right way around people, the smartest people we can find that are doing special things. And I think you're going to find that in any market. You're going to find it in developed market, Bill. You'll find it in Spain. Just by being an American in Spain, you'll see things and say, hey, I think we could do it this way, or we could do it this other way. And there's always opportunity when you're seeing something from a different lens. And the end product is always in progress to me. You'll never have a product, especially a business or an ecosystem or an environment, that says, we're done here. As soon as you say you're done, the business or the endeavor is over. There's always an evolution to be made. And for me, from running businesses and investing in businesses, that's what excites me, is taking it to the next level and advancing.
Yeah. And I love that perspective on things, because it's happened a lot to me, right? Because having worked and traveled throughout some 86 different countries, it's one of these things where you start saying, well, yeah, okay, well, that's really cool. But, have we thought about this as a potential? And you kind of people look at you sometimes like, no, we haven't, and you're never going to do it that way. But then little by little, and people actually see, you get the use cases, and you're like, oh, okay, well, maybe we can do this. And then 6 months later, everybody's doing it the way that no one thought you could do it in the very beginning, not by pushing it down people's throat, but just asking simple questions and then giving very specific use cases, and then being able to start to see it, believe it, and then it becomes reality. So it's definitely one of those things. So one of the other things, and just because you guys have a great perspective on this, right? As someone who is from the US, but you've spent a lot of time now living in another place, there are also some things that at least I've noticed, and I'm sure that a lot of people from the Going Long family are wanting to know, like, hey, well, okay, this is cool. And I know we're going to start talking about coffee, and you guys are going to tell us, but just help us understand, what have you learned or have seen when you are someone who is, and it may be a little bit difficult for you, but as a non-local, working, living, and creating business opportunities with locals versus non-locals and non-locals in a foreign country per se? Does that make sense? Hopefully my question makes sense.
Yeah, I'll take this one, Cole, if you want me to kick it off. It's absolutely an opportunity for growth. I would say you're definitely going to walk away with that at a bare minimum. I mean, we could probably, Cole and I, do this podcast in Spanish now, which would have been impossible a very short time period ago. We're also continuing more and more. I think the credibility you bring from working in like a developed market like the US and our background lends a lot to emerging markets and people who have always looked at the US as really, I guess, the pinnacle in terms of business. People dream to live in New York, dream to live in Miami. I think we enter into conversations with a certain level of pre-established credibility that we obviously have to back up. But we're continuing to see more and more opportunities open up, higher level people coming into the ecosystem. And I think seeing what we're doing, I think you have to believe in the market that you're in. If we were just here, for example, trying to exploit the country versus employ tons of people, it would be a much different conversation. But I think you see a lot of the developing world opening up more and more to that kind of growth, true capitalism, building businesses, thinking about things in a more sophisticated way.
And to add on to Adam's response, for one thing, what you're going to see is if you only have, let's say, foreigner trying to build businesses in places like Colombia or any emerging markets, it's not going to work, right? You have to have a domestic presence and you have to be part of the business community and society that you're interacting with. So what it talks about really is the importance for EQ, I think, and over IQ, right? None of us need to be Google to be successful in these markets. You really need to touch, feel, you need to understand what's important in a community, because that's really what's going to be important in the business environment as well. Whether it's a human capital aspect of employees and clientele, or it's a regulatory aspect and say, these are the things and this is a sandbox that you can play in. So for instance, what we will always do is Adam and I will fit into different areas where we can add value, but you fill in most of the human capital with local talent of guys who are motivated, that are, they want to bring the country forward. They want to bring the industry that we're working within forward. And I think that's the most important. I don't think you can run successful emerging market or developing country businesses only with foreign talent. It would be like putting water and oil together. It won't work. You need it to congeal. You need it to work together and mold.
Yeah. And you're well placed to say that. I mean, I've seen a lot of companies try to do that. It usually doesn't end up very well. You don't get the desired result. Wow. Don't you just love this conversation? This is amazing. This is fantastic. And so just really quickly, I just wanted to remind you, for those of you that are looking to create more options for yourself, get there faster, and do that with long distance investing, make sure that you go to billykeels.com/7 mistakes to avoid, so that you can avoid all those mistakes, get to your goals faster and sooner. Once again, that's billykeels.com/7 mistakes to avoid. Now back to the conversation. And there are a couple of things. So EQ is definitely something that is massively important, the emotional intelligence quotient, right? But also before we get into kind of what you're doing with the coffee stuff, because Adam earlier was saying about the language and you being able to use language now, Spanish language, as you interact. But one of the things I've also found that's really important, because when I left the US, I went to Paris, France, and I was like, I wanted to learn the language. But really quickly when I got there, it was like, it was not just the language, it was the culture. In the very same way that all three of us speak Spanish fluently, my cultural reference is very European in Spain, and your cultural reference is going to be very much, although we speak the same language, it is going to be very much Colombian, Latin American, maybe Latin American, and then specifically Colombian. So that's my take on it. I'm just curious what you guys think about that whole cultural bit as it goes with language as well.
I think it's critical. I'm fortunate to have a Colombian wife for a lot of reasons, but one of the big ones is understanding the culture, practicing the language, fitting into, expected kind of box of what the dynamic is. Like Cole said, a lot of things are, you follow the cultural process as much as you do the business process in terms of having conversations, understanding the market, all those kind of things. And I think you have to, if we're going to be active here, or you're going to be active in Paris, you have to show that you're really interested in that community. It's not just something you're kind of exploiting and then leaving. So critical, I think, to adapt.
Agree. And one more thing, it's also a benefit if you actually are interested in being part of the culture, right?
Yeah.
Getting into Finca life and whatnot. For instance, in Colombia, like Rio Negro, where everyone goes on the summer houses and weekend houses, it's awesome. Like it's a great life. And if you didn't have that aspect and you didn't really want to be a part of that society, it would be a lot more difficult. So if you're going to do, my recommendation for any entrepreneur that's going out there to a developing market is make sure you like being there. Just don't do it just for the money, because I would say, honestly, these days, I would say the cultural aspect and fitting in, especially if you're building large enterprises that are, let's say, macroeconomically important, you need to interact with the big boys in that market. And if you don't like hanging out with those guys and being a part of their life, then you're only going to get so far.
Yeah.
100% agree with you guys. So I love that. So let's also talk about, so you saw this opportunity, right? You enjoyed the lifestyle. You then, you guys connected and you saw this opportunity, maybe an inefficiency in the marketplace. Talk to us a little bit about, because we don't really talk a lot about commodities here. And so talk to us about what you recognize and what the business opportunity that you could combine with your lifestyle that you're now able to make not just a social, but also an environmental impact through coffee.
Yeah. Cole's our visionary, so I'll let him share it with you. And he does a great job. So this is his time to shine.
Sure. So this is one where we came into the coffee market. I really started with trading. So I was just trading on my own dime, largely with contacts that I built up in Asia in my past life. But we saw a market that was fragmented, a lot of small farmers, no real consolidated players. So from an acquisition point of view and a development point of view, for most of the listeners that are comfortable in agriculture investing, the theme is very similar from the ag perspective. It's a consolidation of a deconsolidated market. You put world-class infrastructure, world-class management teams, and then you sell those products a little further down the value chain. And so what that means is instead of selling, let's say, in the town square to a coffee union, take it another step further, maybe export the coffee to a big buyer in the United States or in developed Germany or developed Japan and earn a couple more pennies on that profit, right? And by having an international team, you can do that. But one of the layers that I think is most important, and you're going to see it more and more coming out in the world, is the aspect of ESG, specifically related to climate-related businesses. There's two climate focuses. One is the ability to stop climate change, ability to migrate it or mitigate it, or just adapt to an everly heating market. And in agriculture, it's vastly important to be able to do that. In areas like coffee, you have a pull factor. You have your clients, the end client who is buying coffee, that's say in the local barista buying specialty coffee. They want to see impactful businesses. They're going to push for it and they're willing to pay for it, right? In developed markets. What you need is an almost completely transparent value chain to show that you're doing the right stuff. So I would say there's two elements to our business model. The first is the normal consolidate, bring in real capital, bring in real human capital, both in physical capital, and then sell further down the value chain, but add a transparent impact focus to the business and be able to show our investors and our clients really what we do and why it's special. And so when we created the project, we had the capital available because we had the real estate investors who were looking for access to that kind of business, a collateralized asset, low risk that yields out better than what you would get in a real estate function. But then when you add the impact function onto that, I think in the end, it'll be a much more rewarding. I think honestly, from a profit perspective as well, you'll do better from an enterprise value perspective, but also from an investing in the future of the world perspective. All of our investors have that to take home and say, look, I invest in businesses that do the right thing and it's profitable for us. So it's kind of the best of both worlds of the impact investing world, which I think you're only going to see more and more in the future.
Yeah, fundamentally, we also saw the opportunity to go from zero to the very, very top in the industry in a relatively short period of time. In business, the Green Coffee Company started 2017. We're already one of the top 3 producers in the country and will be number 1 next year. Most technologically advanced in terms of processing, doing more for the industry and the sustainability and the employee treatment than anybody else has ever done in the industry. Our fortunate benefit to us is being able to get access to capital, which enables us to buy the best infrastructure, enables us to buy the best teams, really build something special outside of the US for people who are looking for something in a new market and in an industry where a lot of people truly love it. The value add that Cole and I have is really being able to set this all up for people and then get it to an exit. You know, our full expectation is an IPO or a sale at huge multiples in a relatively short period of time because we're building something that nobody else has.
And so when you have this opportunity to really kind of look at the two different pillars, right, I think is fantastic, where you talked about recognizing specific inefficiencies or consolidating markets, right? That's one thing. But then you talk about the social impact, the ESG portion, where you're able to do that and provide more transparency, which ultimately you're being a bit humble, I think, Adam, but also too, even though your company's been around for a short amount of time, the two of you have been there for a number of years. So you've been doing a lot of the legwork, building the relationships that also give you better insight and understanding to the market, as well as having the capital to be able to do that, right? But on the second point, really help us understand, like, what is it that you all are, without giving away your secret sauce, of course, what are you doing differently that's providing more transparency that maybe some of the others aren't doing? It's allowed you to get to the third place really quickly and is going to very quickly propel you into the first position.
Mm-hmm. From my perspective, in terms of what are we doing differently within the business model itself, obviously the technology providing quality, consistent coffee is critical to large buyers and having a reputable product. From a sustainability point, adding on value to the business from an impact perspective, what will future public markets value? You know, we're doing things here in the coffee industry that nobody's ever done, which we take for granted in other markets, whether it be benefits for our employees, bank accounts for our employees, treating them like people should be treated, which we have to do from a moral standpoint, but also from a business standpoint, where if we're going to tell investors in 4 years, we're going to be a public company in the US, that stock price is going to get hammered if it comes to light that we treat people with less than the dignity that they deserve. So we bring that all together into an ecosystem where it drives value, but also does the right thing for people.
Yeah. And to elaborate a little bit, I mean, one thing you don't see on a balance sheet is the value of human capital. Right. And so the example that I usually give when this question comes up is you need to understand the local market and how it operates. In agriculture, it's a cash business in Colombia. People don't use bank accounts, right? So if you're an employee at a typical coffee farm, you get paid by the day. And if something happens and, you know, you fall on a stick and break a leg, sorry, tough luck. You know, we are the only large coffee business that I'm aware of that pays real wages, pays pensions, pays Social Security, pays medical insurance. So people, you treat them like, one, you treat them like real people, but also from a business perspective, we have access to the best human capital. And to me, if you're building an enterprise and people say, oh, maybe it costs a little bit more money, to me, it's well worth the capital investment to invest in people. Right. And so a lot of our focus on impact are really focused on two areas. One is people, both our own employees and the society around us. both within impacting, the local communities. We invest in schools in the local community, and we teach them, for instance, how do you get more value out of coffee, right? How do you go further up the value chain and not just pick coffee forever, right? In human development, training. And the other is environmental. When you're in ag, you need to be focused on the environmental impacts of what you're doing to the world around you and what do you do differently. So one example I like is, we talk about the value of infrastructure that we're building, but we use 75 to 80% less water than the average processing facility in Colombia. Now, we're just one facility and we'll grow to many, many more facilities in the future. But water waste is a huge issue in agriculture globally. And the ability to recycle water is massively important. And that's only one aspect of the infrastructure and the global technology that already exists that you need to bring into processes. And that takes CapEx and human capital to be able to do it. So really, to us, investing in impact is investing in the ecosystem as a whole, and it includes society, it includes all the human capital related to the business, and of course includes the actual environment around you, and doing the best you can to be the best player in the market.
Yeah, and
we're fortunate. No, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Going to say we're fortunate too to be able to be here on the ground, see this opportunity, but able to reach back basically into our home market in the US and bring investors with us along for the ride. I mean, $20 million we've brought to Colombia. We now have 180 primarily US-based investors that have invested here in Colombia, well, through our US company, but into Colombia here. We've been able to change the lives for a lot of people all through the chain of the company, whether it's investors, employees, management, the industry in Colombia, the towns we operate in. We opened our coffee processing facility a couple of weeks ago, and the mayor in the town was there almost in tears, because we make him look good now, but we do a lot for his community. So it's the ecosystem point that Cole mentioned.
Yeah. And what I love about this, and what I want the Go Along family to recognize is, both Cole and Adam here are sharing a story, and I hope you understand what they're saying. Sometimes when you have traveled and you have seen so many different things because you've been working in a very large corporate and you've learned things and you've been well trained, or you've lived in 5, 6, 10 different countries, you bring in unique perspective. So when you are in a place that is, and I keep going back to this word, inefficient, it doesn't mean a negative thing, but it just means sometimes things that you think are very simple and basic, like when your employees are with you, that they get a decent salary, and that they're paid on time, and that they get access to things that other people don't have because you've brought this experience with you. And so that just makes sense for you in the market that you are. And because you're doing what you probably were taught as little kids, it's creating a disadvantage, a positive advantage, a competitive advantage for you in the marketplace. And you're just doing things that, it's your life experience that you're putting into practice, which I think is phenomenal. So I can see Cole's eyes lighting up. I think he wants to say something, so I'll let him jump in.
No, I think those are the kind of businesses that Adam and I will constantly talk about this if we're going out for a beer or whatever. But I'm not interested in doing businesses I'm not proud to put my name on and say, this is something I want to be a part of forever, right? I think you're going to have a push for it with the climate related stuff. You're going to have a push for it with all the ESG related stuff in the future. You're going to see the SEC come out and start mandating it. You're going to see all the big pension funds, asset managers come out and push it from a capital perspective. And I like it, but I would have done it anyway, even without those pushes, because I think there's a whole grouping of people within capitalism itself that says, this is what I want to see. This is how I want society to operate. And if we can be a small part of that, I'm proud to put our name on it.
Yeah, no, it makes absolutely makes a lot of sense, which is absolutely fantastic. I have one very kind of tactical question for you before we probably going to get into Going Along Final Three, because we've been I know you guys need to be able to do other things. So because I just want to talk to you for like another 15 hours, but I think we probably have other things we have to do. So you mentioned before, so I'm imagining like I live in Europe. I'm listening to this conversation. I'd never thought about any type of commodity. I never thought about coffee. I'm listening to you guys. I earn my money in euros, and there's somebody else who's living in, I don't know, some other country, and they're earning in another currency, and somebody who's earning and living in pesos. Like if I go through and I qualify for your investment opportunity, how does that work currency wise? This is a question I get all the time too. Like, how do currencies work? Because currencies are constantly fluctuating and all that other kind of jazz.
Yeah, we take all of our investment into the US primarily in dollars. So all of our investors will invest in our US holding company. So the actual investment is in common equity interests in the US company, which owns all of the subsidiary interests. So you're not really going through a dollars to pesos conversion. If you were to invest in euros, it would go to euros to dollars, but it's pretty simple.
Mm-hmm. Love it. Okay. Yeah, that was simple enough. I know back in the day, I used to try to do things and go different ways and do this exchange and that exchange. And at a certain point, you realize like, no, you know what? We're going to just make this very simple for everybody, and we're going to do USD. So it was exactly a similar kind of thing. So yeah. Listen, guys, before we go into the Going Long Final Three, were there any things that you wanted to add or feel like the Going Long family needs to know about either what you're doing now or what you're going to be doing?
I would say, I know your group, everybody's looking for opportunities. If you like what you're hearing in terms of what we're doing in coffee or just want to connect generally, don't hesitate to reach out. I guess we can share kind of contact information at the end of the show. We've raised the 10 million that we started with for our offering. We've gotten so much demand and kind of expansion opportunities hitting us in the face in the last 2 weeks or so that we're looking at a little bit of an upsize to really accelerate the timeline for the growth of the business, getting to that number one position in Colombia, potentially as early as Q1 next year. So if folks are thinking about participating, we'd love to hear from you.
Perfect. And we're going to give you that chance on the call if there's anything you wanted to add or what you want to.
Oh, the only other thing I say is Adam and I consistently write about impact related topics and whatnot. So if more or less the themes of what you hear, check out our website. Adam will give you the details of how to get there at the end. But we put out articles every about 2 weeks about what we see in the markets related to alternative investments, what we see in the market related to ESG, what we think about, what the future of the world looks like from agriculture point of view, where we see opportunity. And I'd encourage people to check that out as well.
All right, fantastic. And I know we're going to get to that in just a second. And so you are here in amongst family and friends here because we love anything that's long distance, different markets, different locations, different language, different cultures. So here's the thing though, guys, we got to get to the Going Long Final Three. We're going to make this super fast. And the thing is, I never ask anybody the Going Long Final Three unless you as the guests tell me that you're ready for me to ask you the Going Long Final Three. Are you ready?
Ready.
All right, cool. All right, here we go. Lightning round. So here's the thing. So we started, kind of with you on that side of the Atlantic. And so I'd like to bring it back over here to Europe. And if you guys could tell us just like really quickly, what is your favorite European city that you've either visited or still on your bucket list to visit?
For me, I've always been kind of a Western Hemisphere guy, but I love Barcelona, love the experience of being there, going up and doing the running with the bulls in Pamplona. As soon as things get a little bit more quiet over there, I'm going to be in Portugal and then visiting my roots in Greece. So that's to come.
Fantastic. So I'm going to take Pamplona from your answer, if that's okay.
Okay, do it.
All right, perfect. Cool.
I'll stay in Spain. We speak Spanish. I love San Sebastian. I love the food. I love the wine. You go to the Tapa experiences. It's one of the most dense bar and restaurant scenes in the world. It's an incredible place. So whenever I go to Spain, I always go San Sebastian.
Perfect. San Sebastian, which is fantastic. Donosti, as they say as well. Fantastic. So here you go, guys. Second question. This is based on a lot of the experience that I've had in my entire life and being very fortunate to meet a lot of successful people. The thing is, like a lot of successful people, the reason that they are successful, and one of the things that I've noticed is they tend to be very, very successful because they, unlike most people, make no mistakes. They do it right the first time and they get all the way. Hang on a second. I think I got all nervous. Hang on a second. All right. No, that's a little inside joke with me and the Going Long family. Here's the thing. Most people think, listen, successful people are all successful because they've just done it perfectly. And the reality is that's not true. Everybody makes mistakes. And what I've recognized is that really successful people, they make a whole lot more mistakes than most people, like a whole lot more. Mm-hmm. But fundamentally, and no jokes, very successful people, they do one thing very, very, very differently. And that is every time they make a really relevant mistake or have a learning opportunity or however you guys want to call it, they always, without a doubt, stop, learn from that mistake, and then put steps in place to minimize the probability of that same mistake happening again. So I'm going to ask just one of you guys, just one of you, just to share, what is one lesson that you learned from a previous failure, mistake, learning opportunity that you know that the Going Long family absolutely has to know today so that they can minimize the probability of that same mistake happening to them?
I could do it.
Okay.
I would say, to the extent you possibly can, surround yourself with business partners and clients who share the same values as you do. The virus and all the pandemic, everything was, I think, a teaching moment for everybody. Easy to come up with excuses why not to perform, keep to your word, do things that way. Fortunate to have somebody like Cole and the clients that we have who it's as strategic who we do business with as you would be who you spend your personal time with.
There you go. Perfect. Surround yourself with the right people. Cole, you know what? You guys are constantly over delivering. So I am going to ask you really quickly to share yours because I can't do that. Sure. What's the one lesson? Mine
is focus on something that you can be special at and don't overextend. We've done it before, placed too many irons in the fire. And what we try to do is focus on somewhere we say, this is a special opportunity and be the best at it. And you can only do a couple of those, right? You can't be the best at everything. So I think the other thing in agreement with Adam of having the best people is really focus your efforts and be exceptional.
Yeah. Love that. Be the best at what it is that you do. Focus and then drill down. Love that. Lastly, guys, we want to help people fill their minds with knowledge. So what is the one book that you would recommend to the Going Long family? Cole, this time we'll let you go first.
Sure. I would say, as far as education is concerned, especially related to investing, learn about the history of the world in relation to monetary movements. One of my favorite books is The Ascent of Money by Neil Ferguson, a UK writer. And he talks about, the start of the stock markets in Amsterdam all the way to the modern world. And it's important to understand a lot of the history of the world is surrounding this theory of how money transitions. So the history of that, I think, is massively important for anyone who wants to take investing seriously.
All right. Fantastic. The Ascent of Money. And then Adam, help wrap it up, man.
We started the conversation, you mentioning kind of the mindset around this and long distance investing and getting people to step outside their comfort zone. I think reading biographies about kind of call it great business leaders teach you that nothing great comes without risk. I personally love Titan by Ron Chernow. It's the biography of John Rockefeller. Shows you kind of all the battles you're going to have to go through from a people perspective, but also what is possible if slow and steady, but willing to put yourself out there. So it's a good mindset reminder for the folks that you mentioned.
Fantastic. So Titan. So we'll also include that in the show notes. Guys, I am, this conversation is just fantastic. I'm sure that so many of the Going Long family are thinking to themselves, wow, this was amazing. Like I was definitely drinking through a fire hose and so much to do. I mean, we think about from the very, very beginning, talking about you guys' very diverse backgrounds, being able to come together over business opportunities, recognizing, hey, this accent sounds kind of similar and being open enough to say, hey, listen, we've had these different experiences, recognize opportunity in a specific area, and then made the moves, right? You made the moves. You've not only learned language, but you continue to learn culture across different countries. Now you guys put your money where your mouth was first to start to build this business, build this vision. And now you're at a point where you're also attracting others from across the globe to be a part of such a wonderful business and socially and environmentally impactful, positively impactful opportunity. Like, I'm pretty sure that I'm going to be in touch with you guys more after this conversation. And I know that so many people that are part of the Going Long family are thinking to themselves, wow, I got to talk to this guy, Adam, more. I got to talk to this guy, Cole, more. I want to find out more about what they're doing with their coffee company. And so help us understand, what is the best way for the Going Long family to find out more about what you guys are doing and how we can get in touch with you?
Sure. Well, you can pick which one of us you like the best, but my email is adam.j@legacy-group.co. Cole is cole.shepherd@legacy-group.co. And then our website's legacy-group.co. So leave off the M so you find us here in Columbia. But we'd love to hear from people, talk investments, and get to know as many people in your network, Billy, that we possibly can.
All right, fantastic. So we're going to work on making that happen. And Cole, you know if there's anything you wanted to add up before we wrap up?
No, I think that was great, Billy. Thanks for having us on.
All right. Yeah, it's a pleasure.
Fun.
Yeah, you know what? I really appreciate it, Cole. Adam, thank you so much for sharing your experience, your expertise, your insights, and also investing your time with me and the entire Going Long family. Guys, thank you so very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Billy.
All right, perfect. Just a couple seconds. I just want to say last words to the Going Long family, and then we'll be out of here. So Going Long family, listen, I mean, Cole, Adam, I mean, they just, what can you say? They left such an amazing experience with you, shared so many insights. And also, you know, think about, you know, focus, specializing in being with the right teams to help you get to your goals much faster and sooner. And so, you know, I'm looking forward to welcoming you back on the very next conversation. So until then, go out and make it a great day. And thank you very much. Wow, don't you love hearing from top-notch experts in the field? You know, when I was getting started, I really wish that I would have had access to such experts. And even more, I wish they would have given me like a really simple list of things to follow so that I could have gotten to my goals much faster and been much happier even sooner. So that's why I've created for you the 7 things that you should avoid in order to be successful in long-distance investing. And you can pick that up really easily by going to billykeels.com/7 things to avoid. And also, if you liked today's episode, don't forget to leave a 5-star review. I'm looking forward to seeing you on our very next episode, so go out and make it a great day.